Hello, everyone, and welcome to the debut episode of High School Sports Saturday on 105.5 WEEI. I'm your host, Jim Pignatiello, and I'm the high school sports editor at MassLive.com. Each week on High School Sports Saturday, we'll bring you news and notes, features and breakdowns of the very best of Western Mass high school sports from athletes, coaches, and the media. I'm also hoping to introduce you to all the terrific writers that we have covering high school sports at MassLive.com. Put a major emphasis on building up a strong high school sports department there, and we have a lot of nice, fresh new faces who are really talented who I want to get you guys acquainted with. In that vein, I'm joined this week by Sam Dostaler, who's going to be my co-host this week. He is a high school sports reporter for us, and he is a superstar audio-video person. All the highlight videos that you're seeing at our Games of the Week for football. He's also the host of our video previews that you see all the time, whether it's for tournament games or for football games of the week. Sam, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Jim. Looking forward to kicking off week one.
Sam and I were both at this week's MassLive football game of the week. The big going in was really the game of the year, Sam. Central Westfield at Central. Didn't really know exactly how it would go. You felt like could have been a running game from Westfield that slowed everything down. Could have been Central being able to dictate the pace. And Central really kind of made a statement, I think, with a 52-14 victory. Yeah,
they really did make a strong statement. The only unbeaten team left in Division II was Westfield. They were 7-0 going into the game. But Central showed why they were number one in the MassLive rankings all season long. And this game, it could have been a lot closer, Jim. It was 13-0 Central, then it was 20-0 Central, then Westfield got within 20-7. Westfield was knocking on the door. They had a chance to make it 20-14 with a touchdown, a one-score game, but Central, after being backed up against the wall, 1st and goal from the 9, they made a defensive stand. It got to be 4th and goal on the 1. The defense stood strong. Then 3 plays later, Troy Morrow broke off a 74-yard run, and that was really all she wrote. Central went up 27-7 at that point, and then Central showed why they have been the number one ranked team in Western Mass this year.
That Westfield drive, it felt you started to feel the momentum start to turn. You felt like if they punched it in there, you feel like they were starting to dictate kind of what they were wanting to do. And then, Morrow breaks free for that run, and just never quite felt like a game again after that point.
No, it didn't. And you look at Westfield, and this is a team that they had confidence in coming back because last week against East Longmeadow, they were down big 28-8 in that first half. They ended up scoring 34 unanswered points and winning 48-36. So you thought if they could punch that in, get within one score, that we were going to have a ball game on their hands, but it just wasn't to be last night.
And Central, of course, has one loss. They were a one-loss team going in, and Westfield was undefeated before this week. But that one loss for Central was against Everett, Division I Eastern Mass powerhouse. And you kind of wondered what kind of team from Western Massachusetts had the capability of knocking off a Central. Was it a team like Westfield that could chew up the clock and keep Cody Williams and the offense off the field? Is it a team that can run and shoot and win 45-42? And there were moments where you saw Westfield do what they wanted to do, but the Central offense is just so explosive, can score so often and so quickly that you just wonder how anybody's going to be able to knock them off before they get into the state tournament version of the playoffs.
You have to wonder because this is a Central team. When they're focused and when they're ready to play, it's almost impossible to play with them. Last week, they kind of sleptwalked through the first half against West Springfield, just up by 1 at the break, but they turned it on in the second half, won big in that one. When this team is ready to play like they were tonight, I don't see anyone really in Western Mass standing in their way.
Well, in this game, there was everything to play for, right? There was the number 1 seed in Division II for Western Mass. Division II, of course, being the top division in Western Mass for the statewide tournament. But it was the number 1 seed on the line. The winner was going to get that. The AA conference title, the winner was going to get that. Central gets the win, gets their 3rd straight AA conference title. You think about it, it wasn't that long ago where T. Brower took over that program, and they were just kind of another okay program that would occasionally have some good guys and would give you a tough fight, but they weren't even challenging the Long Meadows of the area and things. And now they're the team in the region and one of the teams in the state. To see them come out the way they did today, that's the kind of team where you say that team can win a state championship in the first year of a statewide tournament, beat an Eastern Mass team at Gillette in December, and have that sort of historic run.
Yeah, without a doubt, because they really have sort of all aspects of the game that you need. Their special teams was fantastic tonight. That's a part of the game that gets overlooked a lot. Then you look at this. They have a quarterback who can throw it. They have a great running game. They have wide receivers who can catch it. And the defense. The defense has been fantastic all season long. And you mentioned this Central team. when working its way through the ranks. It's been fun to watch how they've sort of grown as a program with baby steps. First, it was just getting to the Super Bowl. Then it was competing with Longmeadow, finally beating Longmeadow in the regular season, but losing in the Super Bowl. Then finally they got over the hurdle, beat Longmeadow in the Super Bowl, and now they look like they're the class of Western Mass in football.
You mentioned the terrific quarterback they have. I feel like we've gone long enough without kind of breaking down his game. But Cody Williams, senior, headed on scholarship to play at Monmouth University, Division I player, and watching him, you see all of that. The thing that jumped out at me was a lot of things jump out at you when you watch Cody Williams play, but at the end of the first half, they had the ball. They were in the hurry-up offense, and just kind of the way that they were so disciplined in being able to run that offense, get up to the line, quick passes, timeouts. If when Williams scrambles, he knows to get out of bounds. They had a point where they had to hurry up, get to the line of scrimmage, and spike the ball. I mean, you don't see a lot of high school age quarterbacks and high school age offenses able to do that. It's so much discipline for young kids.
Well, this is a kid. He's very poised. He's been through the fire before. This is his third year starting. He took over after an injury to the starting quarterback his sophomore year. And since he's taken over the reins, he's been very good as their quarterback. And just the way he manages the game, I mean, last night he only threw 10 times, but he completed 8 of those passes. He was economical, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns. You mentioned his running ability. He ran for 3 touchdowns, got out of bounds when he needed to, saved the clock when he needed to, was able to elude pressure out of the pocket with his feet. And the way he directs at the line of scrimmage, you don't see that a lot out of a high school quarterback, especially in Western Massachusetts. Usually you get the call from the sideline, and then you run through the signals and you take the snap. But you have Cody Williams up at the line, directing traffic, pointing out different things in the defense. As far as Western Mass goes, he's the guy to watch when it comes to quarterback this year.
And I saw it last year a lot, but then this year as well. It really does feel like you're watching a college-style offense play. The way, as you said, the way he's directing traffic, the way the signals run in, the way that they don't really huddle and they're just kind of seeing what the defense is going to be and adjusting. It's really impressive that you can build that sort of program, build that sort of offensive system. It's so intricate, and there's so many variables when you do that sort of thing. To be able to have that, I mean, obviously you have to have an outstanding quarterback. You have to have a great line. You have to have the athletes that can run the plays. It's really an impressive feat for a coaching staff. These guys, they don't practice all year. They're not doing that sort of thing. It's really impressive at this level to do that.
It is. And you mentioned that offensive line, and that's something that cannot be overlooked. Walking up and down that sideline a couple times, as I have done this year, those are some big guys.
Sometimes running up and down the sidelines.
Sometimes
Let's
running
not
up
say
and
just
down.
Walk. Come on.
Okay. Last night I didn't run too much, but yeah, I've got my workouts on those sidelines. But I've been up and down the sidelines for a good number of these Western Mass teams, and let me tell you, these central linemen are just big kids, and they really do a good job working together as a unit down there, opening those holes and protecting Cody Williams.
And I mentioned discipline earlier, but even some of the better teams in Western Mass, you'll see some offsides, some false start penalties that ruin a drive. You see some holding plays. It just doesn't happen to Central. They do not hurt themselves. And in the case where maybe it does happen, they still can break off a big play, but you just don't see them shoot themselves in the foot and ruin a drive the way you sort of do. You sometimes do with other teams, even the best of the teams. This team it's so disciplined, and when you consider kind of all the moving parts and everything with the way they run that offense, it's really impressive.
It is. They are a fantastically disciplined team. They do a good job. That coaching staff has just done a wonderful job tapping into the heads of those kids. Those kids are all on the same page. They're all working as one unit, and they're a group that when you just watch them, you can tell they have each other's backs, and they'd be willing to go into battle for each other any week.
So with the results from Friday night, we do believe at MassLive that we have the seeds locked in for Division II and Division IV. The stories are posted now on the website. You can go check them out, but we'll give them to you right now. Why not? As a bonus for the debut episode here. Come on. In Division II, Central did, as we said, get the number 1 seed because of that on the back of that victory. Westfield ends up number 2, and then East Longmeadow is 3 and Longmeadow is 4th. We mentioned Longmeadow before. This is their 17th straight postseason, and that's an unbelievable feat, but it's also an unbelievable feat in the sense of it didn't used to be quite so easy to get into the tournament. In football, it used to be less teams that got in. It used to be much harder. And for it to be 17 straight years, I mean, it's a real testament to that program. That did come down to the end of the season here. To get to that 17th year, they have had to kind of battle against some really up-and-coming teams. But, it's an interesting couple of matchups, right? Westfield East Longmeadow had a crazy game not that long ago that we're going to have a rematch for. Really excited to see that. And then Central Longmeadow, you just feel like that's a game that has to happen right in the playoffs. It's all the years of domination from Longmeadow. It's the program that was Western Mass football for so long, and now it's Central, the team that has aspirations to be the Division II state champion. The first time that you can do that.
Well, you look at Longmeadow, and they're the team at 5-3 in the regular season. They gave, out of any Western Mass team, they might have given Central their best level of competition. Although Central did win the game 19-7, Longmeadow played with them throughout. They did a great job controlling time of possession. Central didn't have as many possessions. At one point, Longmeadow was even up in that game 7-6 until Central kind of took control and shut down that Longmeadow offense in the second half, outscoring them 13-0. But Longmeadow, I think there's still that little bit of seed of doubt in these Central players when it comes to Longmeadow, just because it's been the team that they've been trying to hurdle over for so long. I think we saw it a little bit in that matchup earlier in the season. So I think the Lancers, although they struggled a bit to get into the playoffs, they're going to give Central a good ball game next week.
They go into that game feeling like we have nothing to lose. I mean, if we lose, hey, we're supposed to. This is Central. This is one of the best teams in the entire state. And if they're in the game at halftime, all of a sudden, holy cow, we're in this game. We might be able to actually beat these guys.
Yeah, and you saw that when they played earlier in the season. A lot of teams, when they go and play Central, it's a little, oh man, we're playing Central right now. But Longmeadow, they stepped onto that field a few weeks ago, and they felt like they belonged. You could tell by the way they carried themselves, and they believed that they could beat Central. And after losing just 19-7, I don't see any reason why they won't believe that they can beat Central again.
Now, speaking of the other matchup, the Westfield East Longmeadow game, you were at the other one. It was probably the craziest game, I would think. You and Tom King, who runs our football coverage, probably saw this year, right?
It's a toss-up, I think, between the Westfield game and Longmeadow game. That was a crazy game as well. But this game was definitely a wild game. It was a game of runs. Usually you don't see that so much in football. Football is more of a back-and-forth sport. Basketball is more of the game of runs. But in this game last week, it was East Longmeadow getting up 28-8, really jumping all over Westfield. But the Bombers, they fought back. They got it within to 36-22 at the half. Then in the second half, they took it to them. East Longmeadow did not score another point, 48-36. It was the Bombers walking away with a very impressive victory. And they really controlled that game defensively in the second half, but also with their ground game. And they were even able to throw it around a little bit last week. Jake Toomey, the quarterback for Westfield against East Longmeadow, although he struggled against Central, had a big game throwing the ball against East Longmeadow, threw for 3 touchdowns.
Now, in Division IV, we mentioned those games are also locked in, those seeds, we believe, according to MassLive. They are, of course, not official until the football seeding meeting on Sunday at 12:30. But we've done the math, and by we, I mean not me. You can blame other people if it's wrong. But number 1 comes out to be Wacona, the Berkshire County Power, and a defending Super Bowl champion that actually went to Gillette Stadium last year as the only game from Western Mass that was able to play there in a Super Bowl. Number 2, Agawam. Both those teams are undefeated. Agawam, of course, finished an undefeated season and is in the playoffs for the first time in basically forever, as we learned through our coverage. Number 3 is Northampton, another team that has a ton of history and a ton of pride about that history, but it's their first time in the postseason for quite a while. And then South Hadley is number 4. South Hadley's kind of like Longmeadow here, Sam. They're always good. They've kind of had to battle and struggle. They had to win a game at the end here to get in. But here they are, and I don't think Wacona's thrilled to have to face a kid like TJ Fitzell, who's on our Dagenais watch list, and a team that is constantly there. The South Hadley team, this is a rematch of last year's Super Bowl, so it's not like this is a normal 4 seed that they have to contend with.
No, it certainly isn't. South Hadley, always a team to be reckoned with. And Wacona, they're going to have their hands full. And you mentioned TJ Fitzell. This is a guy who has just had a huge year for South Hadley, 934 yards, 14 touchdowns. That's just in 9 games. So South Hadley, they're going to come in there, and they're going to be very confident. With that said, Wacona undefeated. They're a strong team out of the Berkshires. I'm anticipating a very good game there. We have some very exciting matchups. just going through these first round matchups and all in the two divisions we're talking about.
I was at the 2-3 game here in Division 4 the first time around. Northampton at Agawam, and I think it was like a 19-7 final or something to that extent. But it was a game the whole way. Two teams that just kind of want to line up against each other and just hit. And it was that kind of game. The difference ended up being that Steve Comey just made a couple more plays than the Northampton guys did. I think he returned a kick for a touchdown. But you're seeing Malik Renner from Northampton break out here. He's had a couple of 200-yard games as Northampton has gotten going. That's another game. There are so many good games next week, just to kick off the tournament. Never mind as we're getting into things like Western Mass Championships and then, state semifinals and then Super Bowls. To round things out, the Division 5 and 6 seeds, we don't know the rankings, but we do know who the 4 teams are going to be. Those will be decided later on today as some of these teams finish up their seasons. East Hampton and Hoosick Valley will be the 1 and 2 seeds in Division 5. It seems like if East Hampton beats Cathedral today, they'll take the number 1. Otherwise, Hoosick will take the number 1 seed. And then Greylock and Cathedral will be the 3-4. In Division 6, the order is not set at all. McCann is in there along with Mohawk, Turner's Falls, and Franklin Tech. It's an interesting kind of Northern flair in Division 6 with McCann from North Adams and then 3 teams from Franklin County. So, that's an area that gets excited about high school sports. They'll have a lot of fun with that bracket. I think you guys have probably figured out now why we joke around and call Sam the voice in the office, but we'll be back with Sam. It's time for a break. We're going to pay some bills. When we come back, we'll be joined by yet another MassLive staffer, girls soccer beat writer Jack Flagler. He's going to help us break down the soccer tournament seeds, which were released earlier this week. We'll be right back. Welcome back to High School Sports Saturday here on 105.5 WEEI. I'm MassLive High School Sports Editor Jim Pignatiello. My co-host for this week is high school sports reporter for MassLive, Sam Dostaler. Sam, say hi.
How's everybody doing?
There's Sam, the voice, as we call him. I told you before. We are now joined by another of the ever-growing members of the high school sports staff at MassLive, Jack Flagler. Jack, I didn't trip over your last name that time.
You got it, Jim. Felt a bit going to the break, but perfect right there on the intro.
Oh, tough crew out here. They might not get paid next week now. Jack has done an outstanding job covering. Now I'm not going to talk so nicely about you.
That's right. Yeah.
Jack's done an outstanding job actually covering high school girls soccer for us all season. Wanted to have him in to break down what has become a very interesting postseason. We're just about to get on our way here. The seeds came out this week. Had a couple of games already, and Jack, the team that really kind of I think everybody is interested in, everybody's thinking about is the Division I powerhouse that wasn't even Division I last year. Belchertown, undefeated. The Orioles, Division II last year, move up to Division I. What makes them? You've seen them a few times. What makes them such a dominant team?
Yeah, that was the big question, I guess, coming into the year, Jim. Was would this Division II success translate to Division I? And obviously, it has with a lot of the same personnel there. I think the obvious answer to what makes them so dominant is that front line, but I think if you asked head coach Chris Mogavera that question, he'd probably tell you it's the defense, because I think that was his question coming into this year. He knew he had really talented players up front. The Moreau twins, Brianna and Brittany, excellent players. Brianna Verano, very talented striker. But what he was wondering is, whether he had the girls on defense who could step up into new roles and really take over and, make this a balanced and a deep team. They've absolutely done that. They score 4 or 5 goals a game, but they also know once they get that third that they're probably not going to give up more than 2 in a game because the defense has been so strong. So, it always comes down to balance when you have a team that goes 17-0-1. You don't do that on the strength of 1 or 2 players. You don't do that just on playing 6 to 5 games every game. You got to have balance, and they have depth. They have young players. Kayla Henry is an excellent freshman up front. This is not going to be a case where the Orioles go away after this season. Once the Moreau twins graduate, this team is here to stay, and they're definitely the favorite in Division I.
As reporters and things, there's always a few stories that you want to make sure you get in before the end of a season or before a team is finished playing for that year. One of the ones for girls soccer that we knew we wanted to tell was about the twin sisters on this team, Brianne and Brittany Moreau, seniors. They're headed to UConn to play soccer next year. They've been a part of just an absolutely dominant run for Belchertown. You spent some time with them. You kind of got to know them and their family a little bit. What did you kind of learn about them? Was there anything that kind of stood out to you or surprised you about those guys?
Yeah, absolutely. It was great to get to know them a little bit and get to know their family. I think what stood out to me, and maybe this is obvious to some people, just the amount of work you have to do, not only as a player to make those sacrifices to really play soccer at the next level, but as a family. I mean, this family has gone all over the state for practices. They practice out in Eastern Mass. Sometimes their dad would come pick them up at 3 o'clock from Belchertown High School drive them straight out to Acton and be back around 10 o'clock at night, and they're doing homework in the back of the car. They go to tournaments all over the country. That playing soccer more is going to make you better. That's an obvious truth we just know about sports. But what they have given up and what their family has given up to play soccer at this level, it comes naturally to them just because they love the game, and so they want to work hard at it because it's their passion. It's what they want to do. But I think that's something we inherently know, that working harder makes you better, but maybe don't know just the extent of the sacrifices they had to make.
That story on the Twins is currently up on MassLive.com. You can check it out there. It's also, if you're not kind of internet inclined, you can always pick up the Sunday Republican, and it'll be in that sports section on Sunday. We wanted to make sure we had enough room because it is a very detailed and well-reported story. It's a great story that everybody should read. The Sunday Republican is, of course, the most read newspaper for the Republicans, so that's the one we wanted to get that one in. So we're really excited about that story. We hope everyone gets a chance to check it out. And I have said on other kind of forums, there are some high school players that are they're worth the price of admission. You want to go see them before they leave. Sam and I were just talking about Cody Williams.
Absolutely.
Pay the $10 at some point and go see him play quarterback. The Moreau sisters and this team, not just the two of them, the entire team, you really need to see them play to kind of have an appreciation for just how good this group of 16, 17, 18-year-old girls, and as you mentioned, freshmen, 14, 15-year-old girls, are and how dominant they are. They're going to make another run here, and this is after, again, moving up a division.
Yeah, they are certainly going to make another run, and I think there are a few teams here in Division I who are worth the price of admission. This isn't going to be a cakewalk for Belchertown. They went 17-0-1. They had some blowout games for sure, but there are some teams here in Division I that can definitely stay with the Orioles. You want to absolutely, they're worth the price of admission to see, but I think the competitiveness of the games will also be worth the price of admission in this D1 tournament.
You've seen the 2-seed Minichog, a team that is certainly a contender in its own right, and probably, if they're listening right now, feels like, all right, settle down about Belchertown. We're
here too.
We've raised some trophies too.
Well, Minichog and Belchertown, Jack, played earlier in the season.
They did.
We were talking about this on our tournament preview video yesterday up on MassLive.com.
MassLive.com?
And they played to a 1-1 tie. Minichog was actually out in front of that game, 1-0. They scored first. Belchertown was able to tie it. That's the only blemish on the Belchertown schedule. So this is a strong Minichog team at the number 2 spot.
They're a very strong team, and as we talked about, we did spend a few minutes on the Orioles, but they're not going to be a team that's intimidated by Belchertown. Sam mentioned they hung with them. They earned a tie earlier this year, and they have that playoff experience of going through this D1 tournament, winning in PKs last year over Pittsfield. So, it doesn't get much more high pressure than that. The Falcons know how to deal with that. They had juniors who were contributing to that D1 Western Mass Championship last year, who are seniors now and definitely aren't willing to just let Belchertown here come up to their level and walk through this tournament. So they're the number 2 seed. They're awaiting the winner of Amherst and Westfield, and another team that's definitely looking to make a good run. Very strong defensive team. Ana Maria Ribeiro and net, an excellent keeper. And Renee Himmel, keep an eye out for her no matter where she is on the field, because she will shoot from anywhere and she can score from anywhere. So you get a big play like that on a long goal, and that can turn the course of a game. So they're a team that's looking to make a deep run.
You would probably say, though, that if you had to kind of guess, that it would be Belchertown or Minichog, most likely standing at the end, right? If it wasn't going to be one of the two of them, is there anyone else? Maybe if it's not West Springfield, is there anybody deeper on that jumps out at you as being a true contender that maybe didn't get seeded that way?
Yeah, and they're a team that's playing on this opening weekend here, and that's Pittsfield. As you mentioned, those 3 teams, Belchertown, Minichog, West Springfield, those are the ones you're taking because they're the top 3 seeds. But once you start looking past that, you look for maybe a team that's done this before, making a run as they are this year, a 5 seed. Now, as I mentioned, playing on opening weekend against Renaissance. And that's exactly what Pittsfield did last year. They were a 5 seed coming in. Now, with fewer teams last year, they didn't have to play an opening round, but they did beat Northampton. Then they upset East Longmeadow, who was a powerhouse last year. So you talk about not being intimidated. If it does end up that way, that Pittsfield is going into Belchertown, I don't think they're a team that's going to be intimidated because they knocked off the favorite last year, got all the way to PKs with Minichog. You never like to have your season end that way. So, the motivation is there for the girls who were in this last season. You look for the teams that have done it before when you're looking for maybe a dark horse, and Pittsfield is definitely that based on their experience last year.
One of the ongoing kind of subplots about the season, Belchertown, I felt like was the one, especially because they moved up and had such success, was the influx of freshmen who are just standout goal scorers. I mean, it feels like almost an inherent thing to be able to finish on the soccer field. And Amherst, of course, is the 10 seed. They have a freshman, Sage DeShero, who has had a fantastic season and really given that program exactly what it needed. If they could have said, reached out and said, this is exactly what we need to be coming in, that's, a legit goal scorer would have been it. And there are a few of those in Western Mass this year, freshmen who we're going to be keeping an eye on for 4 years now.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Jim, she came along at the right time for Amherst. This is her first appearance for this team in 10 years. And to have a dynamic goal-scoring freshman like that really helps you out in terms of getting to the tournament and hopefully playing past this weekend, as they have a tough matchup with Westfield. And there's a ton of freshmen also at the D3 and the D4 level, as well as we look down, to these lower divisions. Mahar is led by Mackenzie Tenney. She's a great goal scorer. Erin McCalkus scored over 20 on the year for Granby. Now, when we're talking about these freshmen, it's not always first-year players. Erin was an outside midfielder last year for Granby. For a lot of the smaller schools, they might have a couple of years of experience as freshmen, but all the same, when you're contributing in that sort of way at the freshman level, it's incredibly impressive. East Hampton, another team with Maddie Grabowski, who's an excellent goal scorer. And you talk about what a team needs. That's a lockdown defensive team, and she has great speed. She can get one run free and put one goal in the net. A lot of times that's all East Hampton needs.
Well, and looking at the brackets, I think in Division 3, one of the things that does jump out at you if you don't have a firm handle on the way soccer seeds are handled is that East Hampton was 11-1-4 and was the 6th seed. I know the Twitterverse of the East Hampton girls soccer players exploded when we were reporting that. I think they all thought we might have had that wrong. Sorry, ladies, we were right. It does come down to a little bit of strength of schedule and kind of the league that you're in. Some of the leagues are weighted differently with the way that they kind of look at that now, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. And what it speaks to in Division 3, the fact that such a great team like East Hampton got a 6th seed, is how deep that field is. Now, with the 6th, they still get a bye on this weekend, so they're waiting for Hoosac Valley. But there are a handful of teams at least here in Division 3 who could go all the way through to win that tournament. Now, East Hampton, definitely one of them there at the 6th. Hampshire, the top seed at the number 1. They played to a 2-2 tie with Munson at the end of the year, extended their unbeaten streak to now 13 games heading into the tournament. Obviously a great team right there. Granby, who had an extremely tough strength of schedule, they were playing D1 opponents like Ludlow and Belchertown this year, and they got a 4. So East Hampton isn't the only team that was very competitive this year that was a little ways down in the seeding. And that's because there's some really great Berkshire County teams out here in D3, including Mount Greylock and Wacona. So that's a wide open tournament there. I think that you could see some upsets just because we have no idea, how all those evenly matched teams will match up against each other, and how all these great matchups will play out. But it'll be fun to see.
In Division 4, Munson ended up with the top seed. Cathedral was number 2. Gateway, which is a long-time girls soccer power for a lot of years, is number 3. Mount Everett number 4. Can you just kind of give us a sense of, is Munson head and shoulders above everyone, or is this a little wide open?
Munson is the favorite, absolutely. They're a D4 team that is led by Brooke Murphy, and we could spend probably the rest of the show talking about what she meant to this Munson program. She had more than 40 goals on the season. She scored more than 200 points in her career, dating back to 7th grade and varsity. She's just, when you watch her on the field, she's a magnet for that ball. Some players just know where to be on the field after playing soccer, for years and years, and she's definitely somebody to keep your eye on for the Mustangs. So they are the favorite, but that said, I don't think it will necessarily be easy for Munson, as maybe some people who've watched them compete against higher teams from higher divisions, might assume, just because they're putting up 5 goals against Chicopee, things like that. But they played to a 2-1 win earlier in the year over Cathedral. Cathedral actually had a 1-0 lead at halftime in that game. They're the number 2 seed, so that could definitely be a tough matchup for Munson. Gateway, as you mentioned, a team that's been strong for a lot of years. They're in there again as the number 3. They're always in the mix and never a team you want to count out. So, Munson a heavy favorite, I would say, in D4, but anything could happen. There's some teams that can compete with them.
I want to just talk a little bit about the boys soccer seeds that also came out, of course. Division 1 is, it's been a really interesting bracket every single year, and it comes down seeding-wise to the 2 teams it's come down to in recent years. And number 1, Ludlow. Everybody knows Ludlow and boys soccer in Western Massachusetts and statewide. And then Amherst, which is the defending champion, knocked off Ludlow in last year's Western Mass title for their first Western Mass title ever on PKs in what I would probably call the best game I've ever personally covered in more than a decade of high school sports work. So they're the top 2 seeds. Every game is competitive between those two. They tied twice within like a week during the regular season. And the number 3 is West Springfield, a team that put a hurting on Amherst down the stretch. I think it was a 4-1 finish. And you just don't see Amherst give up 4 goals like that. So I think that really kind of let everybody know that this wasn't a 2-team field this year. Really impressive when you knock off a team as good as Amherst 4-1.
Yeah, definitely. I think for good reason, some people might be looking forward to Ludlow and Amherst, as you mentioned, such a great matchup last year. Ludlow, with the history that they have, not winning that Western Mass title, I'm sure it meant a lot to that Amherst team last year after Ludlow had won 5 in a row. But yeah, Amherst has a tough matchup here before they get to that point in East Long Meadow. That's a really good team. Matt Mooney was one of the best players in Western Mass this year, actually played Amherst to a tie in the regular season. So it's a 2-7 game, not one you would traditionally think would be competitive, but that one might be closer than people think.
And then speaking of teams that kind of are a little under the radar is Pittsfield, number 4 seed, undefeated, 11-0-7. I know that Terrence Payne, who covers boys soccer for us, does the rankings and everything. He had some trouble kind of figuring out where they fit with everyone, and we're gonna find out pretty soon. They get Minnetonka right away, and if they advance to semis, they get the team out of the Ludlow bracket. So they can certainly make some noise and let T-Pain know exactly what was going on all season. Division 3, Belchertown. We talked about the girls. The boys team is just as decorated. They're the defending champion, 16-2, played a Division 1 schedule like the girls did. They get to still play in Division 3. The girls had to move up to Division 1. I wish I could explain it. I don't think they can even explain it. But this, another Greylock, the 2 seed, Monument Mountain, the 3 seed, Hampshire, the 4 seed. Hampshire's a 4 seed at 9-1-6. You don't see a lot of teams with 6 ties and 1 loss, but that's how it played out. And these are some interesting rivalries. Hampshire and Belchertown rivalry. The coaches, I guess, more than the kids at this point, goes back pretty far away. These guys were playing in semifinals and finals for a while. And man, Mount Greylock would do anything to not have to see Belchertown in the final. They have had their hearts broken in the semifinals or finals by Belchertown like each of the last 3 years. So trust me when I say that team does not want to see Belchertown. And then finally in Division 4, we get Hopkins Academy. Hopkins Academy played a mostly Division 3 schedule, 16-1-1, an outstanding senior class. Tyler Zimkowitz, who has something like 135 points on his career, just an outstanding player. But they're also deep. One of the smallest schools in Western Mass, and they're an absolute juggernaut in boys soccer. A team, again, worth the price of admission. Go to some of these games in the tournament, man. They're unbelievable. There are other teams in there, though. McCann undefeated. Smith Academy, one of Hopkins's top rivals, is a team that got deep in the tournament last year and brought a lot of guys back. I know they were impressive on Friday. And it's going to be just another outstanding soccer tournament. It's a lot of fun. I mean, those finals and semifinals are outstanding soccer being played. I would just highly recommend heading down and checking it out. All right, well, we're going to head to another break. We do have bills to pay. What can I say? When we come back, we will visit with the very first WEEI Springfield Athlete of the Week, Danielle Dusso. She's a senior field hockey star from Smith Academy, and we'll also be joined by her coach, Dina Polverari. We'll be right back.
This is Jim Pignatiello for the High School Sports Saturday Show. I'm joined by our Athlete of the Week, Smith Academy field hockey senior Danielle Dusso, and her coach, Dina Polverari. The Falcons are the number 1 seed in the Division 2 Western Mass tournament that starts this week. Smith Academy has a bye to the semifinals, and they will play at West Springfield at a time that we're still, I believe, waiting to hear. Do you guys know when you're playing yet?
We do not.
Do not know yet. So they'll be playing at some point next week. Danielle, it seems like you guys have been playing your best hockey here down the stretch at the exact right time. What has been working for you to get a couple of really big wins down the stretch the way you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely picked it up as the season went on. We just realized that we have a lot to work with this year, and I think we all just sort of kicked it into overdrive as we realized that things were getting more intense.
Danielle, of course, is headed to Princeton next year. It's a decent academic institution with a really good field hockey program. I think when you first were talking about the decision, I kind of said to you, well, I mean, it's silly to ask, but what worked out so well for you there? But kind of, can you take me through a little bit the decision and the process and how that ended up working out?
Yeah, I looked at a few schools throughout my junior year, and I just had a lot of visits. And then I started to narrow it down. I mean, as I visited Princeton a few times, I got to know the coaches and the team and just the whole institution, and I really loved it.
What kind of have you narrowed down what you're interested in studying and doing at that point?
I think I'm interested in politics, but that's just pretty general right now.
All right, future senator in the building. Dina, you've had the joy of coaching Danielle for how many years now?
This is my third year.
Your third year. So you've really seen her grow up from a young sophomore who probably didn't even have her driver's license at the time to now she's a senior, and we're kind of soaking in all the final moments. What kind of growth have you seen, and what makes her the player that she is?
I guess it would be unfortunate for me to not have seen her as a little wee one, but Danielle was one of the first people I actually met here at Smith Academy during the summertime, and she has matured nicely. But I think the best transformation for Danielle is watching her become the leader that she is right now. We've had many talks, you and I, about that, and I think that's the best part. But also, just as that second coach out on the field too, she has a good way of directing, everyone on the field and giving good and positive feedback during practice.
And Danielle has played on, I believe it's 2 U.S. national teams, right? Last year, 2 seasons ago, and then this past off season.
Mm-hmm.
What is that experience like? And then what do you take out of that, for yourself and your career?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all the coaching is fantastic, and all of the play. It's really great being able to play with such a high level of play, and I think it really helps with the whole technical aspect of the game, and just where you need to be at what time, and yeah, I think it was more individual work.
And you've gotten to do some traveling with that too. I mean, that's got to be a fun part of it, along with the hockey and the coaching and the improvement. I mean, those experiences have got to be pretty special to you.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite part. It's just a ton of fun.
Where have you been? Where have you been able to go?
We trained in California in Chula Vista at the Olympic Training Center, and that was really a fantastic experience. And then we toured in Holland, in Amsterdam.
Wish I was able to go there when I was a junior or senior in high school.
Tell me about it.
Tina, you guys have a pretty long break. You've had a great season. You get the reward of a number 1 seed, but it's also a challenge, to have to be prepared, right, for 10 days or something in between games. What do you do as a coach and things to keep your guys ready to go?
I think looking back on last year, we also had a long break, and from a coaching aspect, I wish I had gotten them out with a little bit more playing in other teams, so that's been our focus this year. We scrimmaged somebody yesterday already, and we're looking to do some scrimmaging on Sunday morning. So I just think keeping us fresh and playing as much as we can and letting those kind of reveal what we need to work on is important, and we've just been taking that day by day. Talking to each other, asking each other, what are those things that we need to tackle, and we're just doing that.
As a Hatfield kid growing up, Smith Academy field hockey has been such a big part of kind of the high school and the town and everything. What is it like, as a youngster coming to games and now kind of being in the position you're in now? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, when we all get to Smith Academy in 7th grade, we see all of the banners up in the gym from Western Mass and state championships, and I think that we all, as a team, aspire to be like those who came before us, and we have a lot of traditions. And, of course, when we had Miss Webb, I mean, she was here for, 37 years, I think, so...
I think she lied to us a couple of times about it, too.
Yeah, so it was really incredible. I mean, it's just an incredible atmosphere, and you really aspire to be like those who came before you.
And you've been a part of 1 Western Mass Championship team so far, is that right?
Yeah, in 8th grade.
As an 8th grader.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're a senior. I imagine that this is the kind of thing where you must have thought about how you want things to end here, right?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely want to go out with the most positive result possible, but we just need to keep taking it game by game.
Have you found yourself soaking in kind of the last this or the last few times of doing this? I mean,
yeah.
do you have a chance to kind of enjoy that?
Yeah, I mean, we just had senior day, and it was so weird thinking it was the last time playing on that home field, but I'm definitely grateful for all of the experiences.
Okay, well, that was our Athlete of the Week, Danielle Dusso, and her coach, Dina Polverari from Smith Academy Field Hockey. They'll start their tournament play next week, and we'll keep updated with how they're doing and be watching from the press box. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to our 4th and final segment. We're going to take a look every week at the Player of the Year award during that time of the year. Right now we're in football season. That is the Dagenet Award. It goes to the top player in Western Massachusetts football. Each week MassLive takes a look and kind of ranks the top contenders for the award. We're going to kind of update that list. We're going to talk about some of the guys that stand out to us, maybe pick apart the list a little bit and see what happens. But that's what we're going to do each week through the rest of the football season. Joined now by Sam Dostaler again. Excuse me. And Sam, we saw Cody Williams. We talked about Cody Williams already. We're going to talk about him a little bit more here. He's the number 1 guy on the Dagenet watch for obvious reasons. Best team in Western Mass, team that we think has state title aspirations. And heck, with the title with the AA conference title on the line and the 1 seed on the line, he scores 5 touchdowns, leads a blowout over a previously undefeated Westfield team.
Yeah, the star players are supposed to step up in the big games, and that is exactly what Cody Williams did. He stepped up and he performed to his full potential. This is a guy who is averaging just under 200 yards passing per game, 193.9 yards. That's 20 touchdowns. He can run it as well, 51.5 yards per game, 7 rushing touchdowns, 3 of them coming last night against Westfield. So this is a guy who really, I think more so than any other player in Western Mass, has that ability to really carry his team offensively. And just the passion he has for the game. I know that doesn't necessarily factor in all that much into the voting for the top player, but he just has that passion for the game, and he's one of those guys who can really lead a team.
There were a lot of these guys that had big games today in big moments. You had guys that were playing for a spot in the postseason or that could clinch with the win, or if they lost, they had to hope for other results. The number 2 guy on the list this week was Mike Magipinto, running back. He's gotten a lot of publicity this season because he's been an unbelievable running back as a sophomore for East Longmeadow. No different this week. They were in a must-win situation against Westside, must-win to clinch. He went for 248 yards, scored 6 touchdowns, Sam, against a good Westside team, and they clinched a tournament bid. I mean, what more can you say?
You can't say much more other than simply, this guy is good. Just look at his touchdown totals over the last few games, going back to October 4th against Holyoke. He's gone 4, 5, 2, 3, and 6. He has 24 touchdowns on the season, 1,430 yards. He's averaging just over 178 yards per game. And he's a guy, he's not an overly big kid, but when he breaks through that hole, he breaks through the hole hard, and he is hard to run down. When he gets into open space, he can really get the legs churning, and he's a fun guy to watch. I've gotten a chance to watch him over the last couple weeks, and he's broken off some big runs, and he can shut off some tacklers. He's a fun guy to watch. You talked about Cody Williams being worth the price of admission. Mike Magipinto is another one of those guys here in Western Mass.
And just a sophomore. I mean, it's really an incredible thing to have a kid be your workhorse for a AA conference team as just a sophomore.
It really is. It speaks wonders to what that East Longmeadow program is doing over there. And it's great for them because they also have a strong passing game with Devin Kennedy, so it's really a nice mix for them to have Magipinto as their star running back, and then they can sling it around a little bit with Kennedy.
You know it's a deep season, Sam, when the number 3 guy is the best player on a really good undefeated team that's making a historic run. That's Agawam and Steve Comey, who had another good game against Comp. He had 100. I mean, after the last 2 guys' performances, anything's going to sound like a meh kind of game, but we had 134 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns and a really lopsided win over Chicopee Comp that solidified an undefeated season. This is an Agawam team that maybe after the first 5 games has had to deal with that idea of first postseason in this long, undefeated season in this long. It's the city and the town have kind of gotten behind this program, and they've handled that pressure really well, and Steve is a really big reason why.
He has 12 touchdowns on the season, 904 yards. And one thing you got to keep in mind as we run through these stats is this is through just 8 games for these teams. In the first year of this new playoff system, teams aren't playing 10 regular season games anymore. The regular season is cut short. So 904 yards, 12 touchdowns in the shortened season, very impressive. And he's a guy who stepped up in the big games like some of the other guys on the list. Tonight was a big game for Agawam. They wanted to solidify things, keep the momentum rolling towards the playoffs. He goes for 134 yards, those 2 touchdowns. In the game against Northampton that we referenced earlier in the show, he had 3 touchdowns, 143 yards in that game on just 13 carries. And then the first game against Longmeadow of the season that really got the year rolling for the Brownies, 174 yards and a touchdown. So he performs in those big games.
And as I said before, the difference between the Northampton win and loss was his performance.
Right.
Scored all 3 touchdowns and had a couple of just huge game-changing moments. I want to mention 2 other guys real quick that we have time for. TJ Fitzel, he came up before, but they were in another situation where they had to beat Commerce, 170 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. And Max Chaporas from Longmeadow, this is a program that wanted to get that 17th straight year out of in the postseason. And they were playing a good Minnetonka team. He went for 271 and 3 touchdowns and broke the 1,000-yard mark. I mean, that he is kind of under the radar just tells you how much depth and how good a season we're having here in Western Mass football.
It really does. Last night after the game, Longmeadow head coach Nick St. George said that Max Chaporas might be the best kept secret in Western Mass. So that kind of speaks to how good he is and how good the players are in Western Mass this season.
Well, that is unfortunately all the time we have this morning for the very the debut episode of High School Sports Saturday here on 105.5 WEEI. We will be back next week. We'll talk about some Western Mass Championships, next Saturday being Western Mass Championship Saturday. We will have thoughts on the opening of the football preseason. And let's give a couple of plugs before we go. Follow MassLive High School Sports coverage on Twitter at MassLiveHS. Follow Sam Dostaler on Twitter at SamDosty_5. Thanks for making that easy, Sam. Follow Jack Flagler on Twitter at JFlagler. You can follow me. Mine's really easy at Pignatiello. I'm not going to spell it. We don't have the time. Finally, a big thanks to all the folks here at 105.5 WEEI, especially our producer, Mark, who is truly burning the candle on both ends to make this show happen. We thank you all so much for starting your weekend with us. And please have a good week. We'll see you next week.